Welcome to the Building Interest podcast presented by Leader Bank. In season 2 of our podcast, we've been exploring what it means to be a leader through conversations with leaders from the bank, from within the communities we serve, and from across the banking and technology industries. Each conversation focuses on our guest's personal leadership journey and provides insights on what it means to be a good leader. In our last episode, we heard from Leader Bank's AVP of Talent Management, Sandy Armstrong, and we talked about how to develop leadership skills and the importance of personal and professional growth. Today, we're joined by the Vice President, Western USA of Leader 1031, Kayla Frerking, to discuss her leadership journey, as well as the challenges of launching a new product at the bank in a new target market. Kayla, it is great to have you here on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
So you joined the team pretty recently, and I think the best way to start is just kind of go back a little bit and talk about your background, your professional journey, and how you came to end up at Leader 1031 and Leader Bank.
And Greg, what a journey it's been. I will start going way back as far as professional, kind of collaborating, coinciding with my childhood. I grew up with two lovely parents that are now my best friends and an epic brother. And you'll get my lingo quick. I'm in Southern California. My mother has been investing in the stock market since I was very young. She actually started her own women's investment club. So she's had that, I believe for 20 or so years. And she's also done all the event planning, coordinating, interior designs of multiple properties that my parents have owned through my lifespan. While my father has been so innovative in creating business method patents in the tenants and common space, ran banks in the mortgage division, been in securitized investments and alternative investment strategies with Delaware Statutory Trusts, you name it. So I had this real estate enlightenment, right? And everything from my mom's investment, my mom's charisma, my dad's knowledge and patience, to want to start getting into something that was unique. I know that was kind of a mouthful, but
well, I mean, to say that you have a background in finance and banking and real estate seems to be a bit of an understatement. So you literally grew up with this as dinner table conversation.
Exactly. So it's
what could be more exciting?
I know, right? And it's funny because when I was young, I thought, my goodness, this is not what I want to do. I'm going to lean more towards the inspiration of mom, right? Who I still have. But it was part of wanting to go to the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, do trade school and event coordination, interior design. So I did that in Los Angeles. I loved it, but I had to sign a contract with Dad, of course, that if I did go, I had to graduate at the top of my class, did that, check, and I had to attend a college of his choosing. So that I got into Arizona State University. Go Devils, always, till I die, go Devils. I went to ASU and I studied business communications starting and then went into a full communications with an emphasis in real estate. So I took one class in real estate. I was trying to push away from it. And immediately after graduating, I got my license.
Wow. Okay. That is really random that you mentioned ASU. Well, it's not random for you. It was chosen, obviously. But I lived in Arizona for a number of years before I moved to Massachusetts and ended up here at Leader. I never went to ASU, but I'm very familiar with the area and everything. And kind of a random fun fact about me, that's the only stadium I've ever attended an NFL game where it snowed.
Really?
In Arizona, in the snow. It was the most bizarre thing ever. So
wow, that is wild. I kind of piggyback on wild weather right now, living in San Diego, we're flooding. So right. You never know what you're going to get. Oh, that is so neat. Yes, Tempe is a great town. And ironically, before I decided to go to ASU, my parents owned an investment property in Hayden Square, which was like, the spot to be. And they ended up exchanging it because it was an investment property. And then we kind of picked and settled on ASU, my dad and I and my mother. And after that whole process and rewarding experience in this multicultural level college that I didn't get at FITM, right? This small trade school, it just opened my eyes up to possibility, to understanding different aspects of the world. And I went straight into real estate I had 5 years under my belt as a licensed realtor, and I had, gosh, I want to say 25 to 30 deals in the first couple years, and they ended up being investment properties.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that was your intro into people doing 1031s and things like this?
Exactly. So my first deal ever, I wanted to do the contract, read through it, do the entire thing by myself. I geeked out over the literature. I love contracts. It just thanks, Dad. So for me, when I was learning that, I know a lot of people have TCs. That wasn't my method. I wanted to understand how to use the contract to my advantage and benefit my client. So after about 2 to 3 years, I was approached by a national accommodator who asked me to come work for them. I put it off, kept building my, resume, if you will, and understanding different facets of investment property transactions. Finally took the role for a couple months. It wasn't the right fit for me. And at that point, I interviewed with another large QI who I just came from, and I was there for 5 years running Orange County and San Diego as a division manager. I learned so much from that company. They flew me up to their headquarters. They pounded 1031 into my brain. It's never going anywhere. And really gave me some tools to succeed. Now, getting to this final step, right, is the key. How did I get here? Well, I was recruited, right, which is fantastic. Maybe an interesting word for some, but it's honestly flattering. So I was reached out by Wes at Leader Bank, who asked me, hey, what are you currently struggling with? What's your kind of SWOT analysis of your position? And it really got me thinking. I was having conversations with my husband. Is this a direction we want to go in? Because in my standards in the qualified intermediary world, I was with the biggest, and the biggest was the best. So for me, listening to Wes, talking to Jay specifically, my goodness, who has such an inspirational demeanor, right? And every conversation he has and his innovation, that was it for me. I ended up having a follow-up conversation with Mark, who I knew I was going to be reporting to. And I just said, yes, immediately, let's talk about it. I would rather be with a company that isn't the biggest, but actually is really the best, in my opinion. Having those opportunities and support that I'm receiving is tenfold different than being one of several in an environment where it's transaction focused. And I knew coming with Leader Bank and Leader 1031 specific, I had that. So
that sounds like a really neat journey, like kind of from what you were handed to you making it your own, and not just doing exactly what you walked into, but finding a way to make it your own. Now, I wanted to step back for a second, and you've been obviously using the acronym QI. You mentioned the term qualified intermediary. We're talking about 1031s. Let's just, for those listeners who don't know, let's kind of lay a foundation. It doesn't have to be super detailed. I know it's a complicated topic, but just kind of a baseline of what is a 1031? What is a QI? How does that fit together? Who needs one? Why does your product exist?
Yes, so IRC Section 1031 is part of the federal tax code created by the IRS in 1921. Now, what happens in a 1031 exchange is you have a real estate investor that sells investment property, and they want to acquire more investment property through the use of a qualified intermediary. So essentially, this tax code allows an investor to redeploy their entire investment into more real estate. Now, there's some rules and restrictions within the tax code and holdings. After they close on the investment property, which we call the relinquished property or their current ownership asset, they have 45 calendar days to identify in writing the replacement property or properties, and then an additional 135 calendar days to actually close on only the properties they've ID'd, totaling an entire exchange period from start to finish of 180 calendar days, or 6 months from start to finish.
And if they close within that 180 days, then they get to defer any tax liability on their gains from that sale going forward, and they don't have to pay any tax liability now. But if they go past the 180 days, then what happens?
Yeah, so if they can't close on property they ID with, let's call it on day 181 occurs and they haven't closed, the proceeds we're holding are then wired back to the exchanger taxpayer, and they're facing a taxable event.
Okay.
So essentially the 1031 exchange, when you're setting up an exchange, is an opportunity to find replacement property. So basic terms, we're in the business of moving money between your investment property and other investment property purchases. We enable a taxpayer to redeploy wealth through the disposition of investment property and acquiring more investment property.
So to dumb it down, because I'm good at that, because that 1031s is totally new to me. I'm going to dumb this down.
Okay.
If I were to, as an analogy, have a 401k at one employer and I switch and I roll it over into a new 401k, I'm not actually taking that money out. I'm not penalized. I'm not taxed on it. And now it's in a new place and can continue to grow for me without sort of tax implications. Is this sort of a similar type of idea?
It can be. Yeah, I mean, it can be. However, IRC section 1031 as of 2018 is specific to real estate.
No, I understand. I'm just saying, as an analogy, it's a way for me to take an asset that I'm moving from one place to another. I'm taking one investment property, replacing it with another one.
Mm-hmm.
And in so doing, I'm not actually selling it for profit. I'm simply moving it to a new place.
Yes. Yes, you got
Okay.
it. You got it. So typically when we talk about capital gains taxes, it could be anywhere between 35 to 45% in given states. Granted, my state's the highest in California right now. I'm trying to get out of Dodge. So we help people use that money. I mean, think about that. If you have $1 million sale, let's say $1 million gain,
Right.
40% of that million
taxes. You want to turn around and reinvest it. Yep.
It's an entire investment property.
So then let's talk about gains for a second. Do ups and downs in real estate prices, or I guess in a way mortgage rates for that matter, if people are trying to qualify to reinvest money in a new property, affect your 1031 market? Are you sort of affected by bubbles and gains and lows in the housing market?
Absolutely, we are. We tend to piggyback off the residential real estate market in addition to commercial, right? So when we talk about investment property, we know heavily that that's all commercial real estate. It's not a primary residence.
Yeah.
So for me, where I'm at in Southern California, locally, there's so many investment properties to be had on the beach, Mission Bay, Crown Point, you name it. So where we're at, absolutely, we're very impacted. So our goal is really to provide knowledge at this point. And as Jay, again, who's so inspiring to me, has mentioned, we got to start planting these seeds. And so this is the time to plant those seeds for growth. And that is just knowledge, inspiration. So wherever we can be there right now, I'm in every office you can imagine trying to educate on the tax code.
Get the information out, build the brand.
Yeah.
So about that brand, I noticed that a few months ago, Leader 1031 was accepted as a new member of this thing called the Federation of Exchange Accommodators. Can you tell me a little bit? What's the significance of that? Is that an important step?
It definitely is. I love it. Another acronym, FEA, right? So the FEA really is a stamp of approval for qualified intermediaries. Now, QIs or qualified intermediaries are non-regulated on the federal level.
Okay.
So what that means, right? Anyone can be a QI. There's actually a gentleman locally who has decided to be a QI, and he decides, let's say he has 100 exchanges. You and I are one of those. They put all of their money into one account. We're commingling funds.
Right.
That's terrifying, right?
Absolutely.
So what's going to stop that guy from running off with cash, right?
There's no overarching regulation to prevent against that.
Correct.
So where does the FEA come in then?
So the Federation of Exchange Accommodators is almost like the NMLS, and for us, the CABRE, Bureau of Real Estate, right? It could be on the national level. Anyone that holds a license is within that system. So as far as we go, we're in the system as an approved qualified intermediary backed by the FEA stamp of approval. We have education at our fingertips, updated disaster notices that come out. We're having a lot of those this year due to weather. We have all these conferences and updated, when I mentioned PLRs, court cases, maybe people that are audited in a 1031 space, so we can be at the forefront of knowledge building and relieving the stress for our clients. So FEA doesn't hand out that stamp to everyone.
So it serves to validate the brand and who you are and what you're doing, and provide some level of comfort or trust to clients that they should work with you or an FEA member, as opposed to the guy you mentioned across the street who was just decided to commingle his funds.
Yes, exactly.
And don't work with that guy.
Don't work with that guy. But it's hard to say that because you really need to focus on due diligence and who you're hiring, right? And for me, that benefit as formerly working for a title company that outsourced a bank to hold the money, right? Lots of steps. Why wouldn't you go direct to the bank, which we are? So we have more security in the benefits and the backing of a bank and the backing of the FEA. So it's, I mean, we're up there.
Sounds like the place to be.
Yeah.
So now back to you. You joined I think what, about maybe 4 months ago, something like that. And so your goal is really to expand the 1031 services offered through Leader 1031, which is a relatively new product for the bank as a whole, to the West Coast, where you obviously have said that you're located. What's that been like for you to come in? I know you said it was inspirational, and I know you went from sort of the biggest and the quasi best to now not the biggest, but maybe actually the best.
Yes.
What's that journey like to kind of come in and now you're building this for us on your own?
Yeah, I mean, it was rewarding from the get-go. As far as I put in my notice, I think the first week of December at my former company, and I wasn't going to start until January. I decided, hey, I'm going to call Wes and ask, can I start now? And so I ended up starting, I think within 2 weeks after that. And I wanted to hit the ground running. So it was importing all of my contacts that I had, sending out as many emails, growing our presence, letting everyone know that I've moved and I have a great following and incredible support of exchangers who are extremely loyal and respectful. The journey as far as infrastructure, right? We've focused on this brand awareness, Leader 1031, making sure we have the best marketing team in play, which we do. They're fantastic. We're very blessed. Focusing on finding the right people, right? That's the real challenging part. Now, I know we have our good people out there finding and interviewing and searching for, and I'm interviewing a lot of those people too. And you can say niche or niche, I say niche, but this is a niche space, right? In 1031.
So how many people are on the 1031 team then now?
Currently for our, let's say with everyone, we have 4.
Okay.
and that's coast to coast. And I know that our goal, I believe, is adding, I want to say, if I remember correctly, now don't quote me on this, but even though it's recording, I think it's another 10 people by the end of the year. But again, they have to be knowledgeable in this space, which is rare to have the knowledge, right? How do you get into it?
So Western USA then is a team of 1, maybe 2?
It's me.
Okay, it's you. A team of 1. I love teams of 1.
Well, I take that back. We just hired 2 months ago, Melissa DeRogers, who's fantastic. She's my exchange coordinator. She's a rock star, awesome. I'll tell you, but she's in Texas. So I'm jealous of that.
Well, for those of us on the East Coast, that counts as Western USA. We'll go with that. We'll go with that. In my 9 to 5, I'm a one-man sort of shop also. So I do understand that. But that really begs the question. I know you kind of touched on it a little bit with the conversations with Jay and the branding and the marketing and stuff, but how do you launch a team of 1 3 time zones away from your home office, which is us here in Arlington, Massachusetts, and just sort of seamlessly fit into our culture and our work environment? How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, great question. I flew out to Boston for the holiday party. I met
First time in
Boston. I'm now looking for investment property in Boston.
Wait, just an investment property?
Yep. They need me out here. It's funny. We joke about that, but I fell in love with Boston. The culture really the history of Boston and the culture of the people that are so diverse at Leader Bank. I mean, everyone greeting me, bringing me in, welcoming me with warm arms, open arms, if you will. I just felt like it was home, right? And so when I'm out here, as far as time zone, I'll tell you, there's some very, very sleepy, dark mornings when I'm going into Zoom meetings and, my time, it's 5 a.m., your time, it's 8, which is okay. But really it's been fun because it's different. It's this hybrid role where I'm checking in online, having these meetings, which we're so thriving in, hence this podcast to begin with, right? That we've transitioned from this face-to-face 100% culture into utilizing all these tools. So as far as the internet, the podcast, the social media, that's a huge component of brand awareness, right?
Absolutely.
So Leader Bank is at the very forefront of that. They're so innovative with how we get out there, what we do. And I know we're working on monthly webinars on 1031 promoted by Leader 1031 through Leader Bank. Focusing on, for me personally, as mentioned, I have 4 presentations this week at different brokerages, ranging from Los Angeles to the border of Mexico. I've covered Las Vegas, joined Women's Council of Real Estate there, really trying to get on the board and saturate that brand awareness for who Leader 1031 is in these investment markets.
And all of that in this remote environment, and something that it sounds like you kind of just had to learn on the fly. And it just kind of came naturally to you. Just here we are. Now you're working 3 time zones away, and you're just going to dive right in, and it feels natural.
Yeah, it really does. I think that might have something to do with COVID.
Well, COVID changed all of us, businesses and people included.
Right. I will say that promoted me to have more courage, right?
Okay.
It gave me courage to get out there more. It's actually a neat hybrid position, as I mentioned before that word, right? That I get to check in, help build, and really focus on my market. So I've had that really innate desire to grow and be a leader always, just from my experience of childhood, from being a realtor, understanding the relationship aspect, and that takes time and nurture, which leader has.
I really like what you said about it kind of forcing you out of that comfort zone where, we look at COVID and people had to work remotely for a while. Some still do. I mean, I was joking with you guys before we started the podcast that I had to drive to the office today to do this because there was a lot of noise going on in my house, which means I was working at home, right? I mean, that's just what the sort of natural order of things is now. But sometimes we take for granted the things that are right around us. And then it takes an event like that, taking them all away, to realize that we have to find new ways to go out and get those things. So that was really cool. I like how you phrased that. You phrased it a lot better than I did.
No, I was going to say that response. It was beautifully said. Definitely. It's the moments that we have, right? And I mean, for me, it's right. The courage to give more than we receive, then you always get more than you need.
Right. So bit of a curveball here, just to go back to the 1031s a little bit more rather than sort of your personal path here. And this is, I just want to touch on recent news events. It's often said that you can turn a failure into an opportunity. And so my thought or my question for you is, if you're seeing any movement really right now in regards to the 1031 space as a result of recent events that have happened in the US and the global banking industry and things that are still unfolding around us, is that having an impact on how people are perceiving investment properties, whether or not they're buying or selling or doing exchanges? Like, what's going on there?
Sure. So I think I did have some frustrating and challenging calls last week regarding the effects of the banking systems and what's happening, right? So those were a struggle, but it actually gave me this empowerment and ability to restructure my statement in a positive way of what's to come. We don't know, right? Nobody knows. It's interesting because we're getting all of these news outlets and seeing shifts in numbers and predictions, and then my phone is ringing. So it's hard to decipher exactly where we're going and what's accurate intel. Every single person in the United States and the world, rather, has a subjective intent to their directive, right? I'm going to do something that you have no idea that I'm going to do, and same with you. However, they're on their own trajectory. So that to me is, they're living their best life. They want to go and they want to do an exchange, and they don't care the impacts of the environment on the economics factor. This is their trajectory, right? So it's hard to say. I mean, market conditions, yes, but the way that we are structured at Leader 1031, we have that movement of being nimble, right? We're not the biggest. So it's nimble, really small and growing. So we have the capabilities of doing the podcast, of using and assisting Leader Bank and the LOs, the loan officers, and helping them gain knowledge on 1031, and really creating this snowball effect to empower and grow.
I love it. And it sounds a little bit also like with anything in banking, when one door closes, another one opens type of thing. Just because there's some discomfort in the market out there doesn't mean that there isn't still opportunity for 1031s and for property exchanges.
Right. And I mean, typically during this time of year until we hit spring, real estate slows anyway. So, and when you're working for a fantastic bank, it doesn't impact you too much. People are moving money, right? So who do you trust?
So now I'm going to dumb myself down again. There's no real winter in California. Are you saying that you guys also have a spring market? It's not like the snow thaws like it does here.
No, we do. It's really,
you do see the cyclical market the same way there that we see here.
Exactly. And it'll halt again. I always used to list properties when I was utilizing my real estate license in December because there weren't very many listings, but you could decorate them, get them sold in 2 weeks, right? But people usually slow the listings down. We have low inventory, right? Still. So while we're shifting to a buyer's market in the commercial space, not so much. As far as full buyers, we're just kind of stagnant. But then we're looking at the residential investment property space, which is thriving. We kind of have that same effect of the low inventory. People are still offering within or above asking price.
Okay.
We haven't seen too much of a shift while price points are dropping in some places, not where I'm living.
But dropping price points they do affect the 1031 market because they would change the amount of gain that's available in the system to carry over then?
Yes and no. So what we focus on is really the investment property sale in general. If a deal comes in and it's sold and it's a done deal, we're holding the sale proceeds on behalf of the exchanger, right? So price point or not on the gain, when you do the 1031, it's completely deferred.
I guess in a way, then the gain doesn't matter to you. All that matters is that the house sold. Right.
Exactly.
Fair enough. The light went on. That makes sense. So then with all this said, what's ahead for you? What's next? What goals do you want to focus on personally, professionally? Where's Kayla going in all of this?
Yeah, so professionally, I have learned a lot in 4 months in a different viewpoint where I was so transaction driven and working for the man in a way that really dimmed my light, right? Coming to Leader Bank and Leader 1031, I have the passion back and it feels good.
That's awesome.
So yeah, the passion's back. So professionally and personally, those are definitely always needing alignment, right? Where one is suffering, the other one is peaking. So to have that perfect balance is key. And I think in doing that, it would be to instill more wisdom, to instill just really the support system at home with my family. And I have personal goals of yoga goals, Pilates goals, running that marathon, and professionally speaking, inspiring where I can and building out that team. I never envisioned myself as a vice president managerial role. And now that I'm in it, I absolutely love it. I love being able to help, to assist, to support, and provide. So I hope to continue doing that. And I hope that I can deliver to what the expectations are from the Thule family at Leader Bank.
Well, your response to that question pretty much wrote my next question for me. This is fantastic.
Okay.
Because in talking to you, through this podcast and leading up to it, I mean, I've obviously gotten the sense that in some ways you're just a natural leader. Like this is something that just kind of comes naturally to you and the paths that you've taken in your life. What advice could you maybe offer to those who haven't tapped into those leadership skills that they might have yet? Kind of like you said, you never imagined yourself in this VP leadership role, and all of a sudden you have it, you love it. What advice can you give to folks who maybe also haven't yet gotten to that point, but maybe that's next for them and they just don't know it yet?
Sure. I think I'll go back to that word of courage. I think it's really finding it within your heart and who you are. If there's something you want, go get it. What are we waiting for, right?
But what if it goes wrong? What if it doesn't work?
That's okay. There's
fear gets in the way of courage.
You're right. And look at my path. I have this zigzag path from fashion school. And yes, it rolled from there, but you never know what's next. And I tell my husband, my best friend, my soulmate every day, what is it that you want to do? What is it that you desire every day? And I always ask myself that question when I wake up. What's important? What do you want to do? What impact do you want to have in the world? So I think it's really finding that courage and knowing that you're not alone, that we're all here wanting more. So go after it, right? Sky high, sky's the limit. So I'm always here for a conversation too. If anyone wants to put their heads together and chat about it, I'm more than happy to.
Oh, that is great advice. All right, Kayla. So last question for you. Here at the bank, we recently celebrated Women's History Month thanks to the efforts of our outstanding diversity and inclusion group. So I was wondering, do you have, and you're going to say your mom perhaps, because you started with that early in the podcast. And I was like, well, there goes my closing question. But do you have any particular favorite women that you look up to as leaders? And it could be whatever, personal, professional, inspirational, just maybe someone that helped sort of shape you along the way, that gave you those words of encouragement that you just gave our listeners.
Yes, number one is definitely my mother, Sandy. She's fierce, man. She's got this spirit and charisma and nurture at the same time that won't settle. She's always taught me that you can do whatever you put your mind to. I know it's probably a funny thing that parents say to their kids all day, but that really hit home with me. And she still tells me, whether I'm not wearing lipstick. But no, it's really that level of, look what I've done, taking $10,000 and have this multi-million-dollar investment portfolio while inspiring other women that were just housewives. And now we have this responsibility and now we own something and it's rewarding. So it has always been my mother. In addition to, in this space personally, I have a couple friends that inspire me as well. And Martha Mosier, who is in Southern California and works for Berkshire Hathaway, she brings so much joy and passion to the real estate industry. It's absolutely inspiring. If you ever get a chance to hear her speak or meet her, it's a gift for you. It truly is.
No, I love that. And you can tell that passion, that joy that you speak of, that want to go after more has really made an impact and an impression on you, and it shines through. So any other thoughts, comments, parting thoughts you might want to have for our listeners?
No, that was very sweet. Your statement just there. It's been a pleasure. I was very excited to jump on and do this with you, Greg. I'm just excited for what's to come. As we've mentioned, we don't know where our path is going to go, but I think at the end of the day, with the right tools in place and support, which I have, which I hope listeners have, you can go anywhere you want. So thank you again for everything, for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Leader1031.com LLC, Leader 1031, is a wholly owned subsidiary of Leader Bank NA. This podcast is provided as general information only and should not be taken as legal, investment, or other professional advice. The content of this publication shall not be construed as a recommendation to participate in any particular trading, financial, or investment strategy, and neither Leader Bank NA nor Leader1031.com LLC can provide legal or tax advice concerning the specific tax consequences of a given transaction. Any action that you take as a result of information or opinions provided in this publication is ultimately your responsibility. Consult your attorney or tax professional before making any investment or financial decisions. For more information on today's subject, visit leaderbank.com. In addition to past episodes, you can also find our corresponding blog entries for more insights. This podcast is a production of Leader Bank NA, Equal Housing Lender, member FDIC, NMLS number 449250.